Bienvenidos, queridos amigos, a este programa especial en el que tenemos la suerte de presentar a una de las mentes extraordinarias en el mundo, no solamente por haber ganado el Premio Nobel, sino también por sus aplicaciones prácticas en el mundo de las relaciones, las inversiones, el modelamiento de situaciones en universidades, en empresas norteamericanas y, por supuesto, sus consejos sirven al mundo. Nosotros tenemos la posibilidad de entrevistar al doctor Merton cuando él viene a hacer una visita al gobierno ecuatoriano, invitado por el gobierno ecuatoriano, y es un placer para nosotros el disfrutar de este privilegio. Vamos a hacer la entrevista en inglés y ustedes tendrán la traducción inmediatamente. Dr. Merton, it's a pleasure for me to talk with you and start talking about your life, how you feel when you sit back and you realize your life with your family, your parents, your mother saying some things, your father advising you. How is it?
Well, one of the most enjoyable things about living a longer time is that you get a chance to do just what you ask and look back. And of course, one always likes to feel they did something to control how things came out. But you're always indebted to those who made things possible, and of course my family. When I was a young
boy?
Well, I don't go all the way back to when I was born.
When you played baseball, you were interested in cars,
yes.
Well, and other issues?
My interests, first I should say I came from a academic family. My father was a very eminent scholar, a sociologist, world-renowned. So I grew up in an academic environment in the sense of knowing about it. I had no interest in becoming an academic. In fact, as you could understand, a young man or boy with a father, you may want to go in some other direction. So as a child or a young, very young man, my first interest, not uncommon for U.S. Boys, was baseball. I thought I would be, I played it, I thought about it, I knew every statistic.
And you studied a lot about it.
And I did it, and it was a kind of a passion. And I'll come back to the issue of passion. Remind me if I don't. And but I had a passion about it. And then I learned...
You were very interested about cars.
Yes, well that came just a little later. But then the next thing that I came interested in was the stock market. My father, although he was a scholar, knew something about it and told me about it, and I had an aunt who also. And I became intrigued with it, and I would look up the companies. And I bought my first share of stock when I was 10 years old.
I can't believe that.
So
you were an investor.
I was an investor
with 10 years old.
10 years old. And I followed it, and again developed a passion for it and an interest. And all through my years through college, graduate school, I always traded in the markets, first in stocks and then other markets, but never thinking of that as something I would do for a living, but more, I don't want to say a hobby,
enjoying life,
but just something extra, that you didn't talk about. And then, as you indicated, around 10 or 11. 11 would be the really beginning point. I developed a passion for cars, and I found out everything about them. A little later on, I wasn't old enough to drive, but I bought old cars and fixed them and sold them and learned all about them.
You were very good with hands doing things like mechanical issues?
I was okay for doing hands, but I would work at it, and I learned, and I found people to learn from. So I actually started building cars when I get a little older, that I actually raced the cars that we built. I had no money, don't misunderstand. It was all done with stuff from junkyards. But I learned a lot from that discipline, and I enjoyed it. But again, it was a passion.
Yeah, but you are a passionate man, because with baseball, cars, family issues, and studying universities.
But I should also mention, in frankness, when I was at that age, I had another interest, which was girls.
Girls, I imagine, yeah.
But the point to make that while I was a good student, and I loved math. I confess.
Always math.
Yes, math I always loved, whether it was, but I always liked applying it, not in the abstract of number theory, or number theory or something as a mathematician. But applying it, the stock market, figuring out how many cubic inches and horsepower in the engine to eventually the other things. But I say this for all your audience who have children coming along, that when I went to public school, a nice public school. I benefited from Sputnik, which the United States put huge sums under the National Defense Education Act, so that in a public school in a not big town, I got a very, very good education in math and science.
And you have all your life the fortune to have good mentors, because you always refer to your mentors. Even when you won the Nobel Prize, you talk about your mentors.
Course, absolutely.
It's really a big issue.
That's a great fortune. Of course, in my family, my father was a very important mentor of mine. Mostly after I got a little older, so that I got a little more secure with myself. But my mother also gave me some very important lessons, and one that I think I put in my Nobel Prize autobiography. She taught me, she said, do it their way and show it you can do it as good or better than anyone else. Then you earn the right to do it your way.
Big advice.
Yes. And it came from the sculptor Lipschitz, the Cubist sculptor, because as a child I couldn't understand his abstract. And I'd say to my mother, is he playing games with us? I mean, as a simple child. She said, let me show you. And she showed me portraits he had done in bronze where the face was alive, so real. And I could understand that. She said, see, he showed you he could do it the way you want. He's doing this because that's his choice and that's his passion.
And
you
apply that lesson in all your
I have my life, and it served me well, rather than say I want to do it my way and do it. So, yes.
After talking about your career, your academic career, you switch from one career to other career to other career. Sometimes fathers, parents says, what are you doing? You are not sure about what decision you are going to take in life, but a Nobel laureate says us that he switches from one career to other career.
Well, I could tell you some other stories about some of the other laureates I came to know, that I'm not the unusual case. No, but in that respect, I liked math, I liked engineering. I thought I was going to be an auto engineer. I went to engineering school to start with, loved it, learned a lot, I think like an engineer. But I had no interest in being an academic, no interest in even getting a PhD.
Only practical things, going to stock market,
assets and so forth. And then inevitably, later in my training in math, I decided I wanted to go for a PhD, but still in math and not necessarily to go into academia. So I switched, I went to graduate school at the California Institute of Technology at West Coast. It's sort of the MIT of the West Coast. Had a wonderful time there. Passed all my
mentors.
Yes, I passed all my exams. I was lucky. By that time I was doing pretty well and so forth. But then I had to write a thesis. And thesis is a long work, and it was water waves in the tank or plasma physics. None of that gave me a passion. What I was doing, though, is every morning, because California is 3 hours earlier, I was getting up and, trading. When the New York markets opened at 9:30, which was 6:30 in the morning, I would trade up until time to go to class and work on my research at night. And I said, I seem to have a passion and an interest in finance and markets, and I learned a lot from doing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I learned by doing. And at one point I said, I read two things happened. One was, that was the time when macroeconomists, which I'm not one, but announced that we had solved the big problems of getting rid of deep recessions and depressions and big inflations. Of course, we later learned that we hadn't. Yes. So I saw that, and I thought, wow, if you could do that, even a little good thing, you could influence millions of people.
Make a lot of impact.
Impact and make it matter. And I feel like I have an intuition, a passion for this. So I want my work or what I do to be what I want to do. And then I read a very bad book, poorly, I didn't know it, on mathematical economics. And I read it and I said, as this arrogant 20-something, 21-year-old, I think I can do something to improve on that. So I went and I applied, here I am with a PhD, applied to economics departments. I had no economics training, formal.
At that time,
At that time. I applied to 9 of them. 8 of them turned me down. One, MIT,
yes,
which arguably was the best department in the world, the second best, doesn't matter. And they gave me a full fellowship. So it was an easy decision.
You had a good alliance there? One of your previous professors?
No. Pure luck. Okay. You know, anyone who tells you they got to where they did because of just what they did is not telling reality. We all need luck. Where the skill comes in is when you're given an opportunity by luck.
To be at the right time, in the right place.
But when you get that opportunity, which is luck, what do you do with the opportunity? That's what I think
that's your job.
That's your job. But we all did. And I had the great luck of one man who was reading the applications from MIT, happened to be a statistician. He recognized the people who wrote my recommendations and said, why don't we take a gamble on this guy? So he brought me in.
And it changed your life?
It changed, of course, my life, but he did it twice. Since you like this kind of story, let me just quickly finish.
We make only a short period and then we come back.